Okay, sounds good.
This should be the last.
Testing,
Know what
testing.
happened.
Good evening, everyone. I welcome everyone to the joint public hearing, May 12th, 2025. This is a joint meeting with the Planning Board and Board of Commissioners for the purpose of conducting a public hearing. First, we need the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. New business, PD 2025-01, Pearces Road, Plan Development. The request is for a conditional zoning for 160.62 acres from Wake County R30 to Plan Development located on Pearces Road. Will everyone please hold their questions until after the staff and the applicant has made their presentations. Matt, will you proceed?
Good evening, Board of Commissioners, Planning Commission, and residents. Just a quick reminder of the process for how public hearings work, or joint public hearings work. In the town of Zebulon, staff will provide an overview of the entitlement request. The applicant is here to provide a presentation. The Board of Commissioners ask questions, the Planning Board asks questions. Then the mayor opens the floor up for residents to make public comment, and then the mayor closes the joint public hearing. And this occurs for each application. There's a particular set of rules for a public hearing which the mayor will read right before we open the floor. The first application tonight is the Pearces Road PD. And when it comes to plan development, there's a certain set of standards in which the application must be judged against. Health, safety, and general welfare, appropriate for the location, is it reasonable in the public interest, and is it better than a strict interpretation of the Unified Development Ordinance? This is a satellite image of the development. The applicant is TBM Partners. The property owners is Linda Isley, Philip Isley, Purdy Family LLC. The property address is 1729 Zebulon Road. As the mayor stated, it's 161 acres. It's currently a Wake County parcel that is zoned Wake County R30, and the proposal is plan development. Of public hearing notification, we followed the standard process. Public hearing signs were posted on all frontages. Mailed notices were sent to property owners within 750 feet. The notice was put in the paper of general circulation twice, and it's been posted on the town website. A brief timeline of the activity. How did we get to where we are today? This development was first submitted November 1st. And so it's been through both the technical review committee meeting, which is the staff level meeting, and then there were 2 additional submittals after that. And then their packet for joint public hearing was submitted at the end of April. The parcel itself on the future land use map is designated as suburban residential. And so just as a reminder, the future land use map is the base tool we use when we're evaluating an application. Zoning is an implementation tool for the future land use map. So we start with this image for this parcel. It's the future land use designation is suburban residential, and the type of development that's occurring, a planned development that integrates housing types with increased open space to preserve overall suburban character. That matches the description of an allowable use under this future land use designation. So even if this was not a planned development and was a simple, strict rezoning, it is compliant with this future land use map, and we move forward. The current zoning is Wake County R80, and staff also looks at the zoning that surrounds the parcel as we think about the context of the development. It's surrounded by Wake County parcels on 3 sides. Wake County R40W, which is a watershed district, and then additional R30 parcels. In the town of Zebulon to the south, it's bordered by an R4 development and a development that is R13 SUD, which is effectively the old version of a PD before the current UDO. This is an image of the development An image of the development is 511 homes across 161 acres. It has a gross density of 3.17 development units an acre, and also includes an amenity center and 2.6 acres of something else, of flex space. And the applicant's here, and I'm sure they'll talk a little bit about that space. There is also a significant amount of open space in this development. 28% of the development is classified as open space. A little over 8 acres is what we would call active open space, and a little over 36 acres is what we would call passive open space. Now, with planned developments, when we receive an application for one, our first question is, how does this modify or deviate from the vested or standard zoning? And one thing that the staff initially looks at is we look at what's the closest zoning district to the application, and how does the density compare? And how is this application, if it does, how does it exceed or do something better than what vested zoning would deliver? Better in this view means how does it better align with the policy goals that underwrite everything that we do? So when it comes to gross density, that's the total number of dwelling units and the total site. So that includes everything. That includes open space and roads and everything like that, and it's 3.17 development units an acre. If this was a by right application, the matrix, or the mix, I should say, between single family and attached homes, the gross density could go up to 3.9 dwelling units an acre. So in that sense, it's less dense than what the standard zoning would allow for this site. We use the term less intense. We also look at net density. And net density is just the sum of all of the lots that will have a home on it. So you subtract out the roads, the open space, any potential commercial, etc. The net density of the site is 6.1 development units an acre. If this site were to be built by right, you would need at least 115 acres to fit the same amount of homes in the same arrangement instead of 83.7 acres. And so what this tells us is that this project the developer obviously has a number of homes that they would like to build, and they're seeking a way, or they're using planned development process to be more efficient with the land, to use less buildable area, and conserve more space. So more homes, but in a less intense delivery. This is an example of when we look at these, say, okay, does this exceed what the vested zoning would otherwise deliver? So it's less intense, but it's a smarter use of the land from a conservation standpoint. And you can see a little more of that here. And so this development in the PD process exceeds the required amount of open space by quite a bit, and it exceeds or effectively meets the total active amount of open space. The impervious area of the site will not exceed 46%. So what this means is that up to 46% of the site will be paved or will have structures on it, but 54% of the site will not. It will be green space or something natural. One other way that this development deviates from simple zoning is the use of a perimeter buffer. This developer is proposing a 40-foot vegetated buffer around the entire site with some modifications to that. Our type D buffer will be applied where the development touches a residential property to the north, right along Pearces Road. And a type C buffer will be applied to residential properties that abut to the south. And those are the properties on GG Lane. The developer is also proposing to use the natural forested buffer around the rest of the development and supplementing with our type B buffer when it's necessary to achieve the same effect of a 40-foot opaque buffer. There's a couple of additional considerations in this as well from an architecture design guideline standpoint. Municipalities in North Carolina cannot dictate what a house looks like, but a developer can certainly make some proposals in a planned development to provide some clarity and expectation about what those houses may look like. That is in this planned development application. So they do provide residential design standards. And there's also kind of a unique product that's in here that I felt was important to highlight. There are some townhomes that actually front a shared park or a courtyard. This is kind of a unique new product that we're starting to see more in planned developments. There's a couple examples in Wendell, just down the road, but we thought it would be important to highlight that here as part of the application as an attempt to exceed what our standard zoning would otherwise allow. road improvements. So land use is one thing, but land use doesn't exist in a vacuum. How do you get there? And so development puts obviously pressures on our infrastructure systems, be it sewer and water, and in this particular case, our transportation system. So I'd like to talk about that briefly. We have a transportation improvement plan that guides staff when we're working with developers to scope their applications to meet our infrastructure requirements. And in this area, our transportation plan says that the town should be planning for improving Pearces Road to a 2-lane divided road. That's effectively a 2-lane road with turn lanes between Arundel and Proctor. We should be planning for Pearces Road to be improved to a 4-lane divided road. So that's 2 travel lanes each direction, with a median or turn lanes in the middle between Proctor and Farrell. And the transportation plan also discusses improving 2 key intersections in the area, Pearces and Pippin and Pearces and Proctor. Now, it's important to point out that Pearces and Proctor is also an impact fee eligible intersection as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. So this is a better map, I think, than this crazy colored one that shows these are the 4 transportation projects that the TIA for the Transportation Impact Assessment for this project has identified as being impacted by the system and may require improvement by the developer. And so in the TIA for this project, you'll see the developer has proposed some contributions to our transportation infrastructure system. That includes widening the road at the site access and 2 intersection improvements, one at Pearces and Pippin, which would be either a roundabout or monitoring for signalization potential. And the second is Pearces and Proctor, which was initially part of the 2024 bond. And the developer is proposing either to construct a roundabout or contribute to improvements of that intersection, proportional to their fee in lieu. It's important to also add that all of these are pending DOT input and approvals, and these don't typically happen until the construction drawing phase. Now, another thing about Zebulon is we have an impact fee program. And the way that our impact fee program works is developers, every type of development has a value to it, and depending on the intensity of that, there's a fee that's charged. And so when we add it up, approximately $970,000 in impact fee, although when a developer proposes improvements that are either on our impact fee schedule or improvements that have a system-wide impact, we can reduce that. And so this number is not set in stone, but I put it here to show that when a developer chooses to build in Zebulon, it's a pretty substantial cost that comes with ensuring that this is not an investment that happens quickly and everybody goes away. This is an investment for the entire community. And so approximately $970,000 or the value thereof will become part of our impact fee pool and be used to construct projects. Development in Zebulon is also subject to a utility allocation policy. This is effectively a public realm improvement program that each type of development has to meet a particular number of points in a matrix in order for them to connect to City of Raleigh water. And so this development, obviously they meet the utility allocation policy through public realm investment. And as you can see, that's what's on the screen here today. And so what are the outcomes of this development should it be approved? Well, I think there's 3 things that would be true. One is that it would introduce 511 new residential lots to the town of Zebulon, and that's approximately 1,400 new people. There is this commercial institutional flex pace lot that might become something else, and it does give the town an opportunity to provide some additional support to the residential growth on the north side of town. The third piece is that we know with this investment there will be transportation improvements at identified priority areas and intersections. And so this is just a reminder here of what the standards are when evaluating a planned development. And our recommendation tonight is simply to accept public comment and then for the Board of Commissioners to refer this matter to the Planning Board. And now the next stage here is the developers themselves.
Thank you.
Clicker. Sorry. I don't see one over here.
Clicker.
Thanks.
We only have to.
To be Mayor, members of the Commission, members of the Planning Board, Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group, here on behalf of the applicant, in this case, TBM Partners. Joining me tonight from TBM Partners is Joe Sabina, who's been working tirelessly on the plan that is going to be presented to you tonight, that's contained in the staff report that Matthew just presented to you. Also joining me tonight is Bill Turner with Roebuck Homes. They're a plan builder in this community. Additionally, Mark Ashnes with the CE Group. They are the planning and engineering firm that have really put in the work that is being presented to you tonight related to the planning and engineering of the site. And last but certainly not least is Josh Ranke of Bolton Mink. They are the transportation engineers for this development. I believe staff has done an excellent job covering an overview of this case. I believe the staff report that's been provided to you provides really kind of granular detail associated with what's going on. I want to use this opportunity to really kind of focus on some themes that are evident, we believe, from the type of development that Joe is really trying to deliver here, that TBM Partners is trying to deliver here, and more important than anything, it's providing us a place of a community, not just a place where homes are going to be put up. It's really trying to build a sense of place for the people that are going to be living here. And it's providing multiple housing types. So when people move in, they can move into a workforce housing building. They can move from there into a traditional townhome, an alley-fed townhome, then an alley-fed single family, and then ultimately to larger lot single family residential. We believe it is the type of community that will provide the opportunity for people to be able to move in with their families and grow in the same exact area. They won't have to pull their family up and move as their family grows. Additionally, it's a very well thought out community. We believe that the work that's been put in demonstrates thoughtfulness and creativity around creating this sense of place, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we get into that slide. As Matthew mentioned, it's 160 acres. The front door of it is Pearces Road, currently zoned R30 with the proposed zoning of planned development. So this is the master plan that is before you tonight, and I've got some bullet points there just for your edification that you can review as part of the plan, but I want to walk through kind of the fundamentals of the plan as it relates to these points. And just from a high level, the multicolors that you see there are the different housing types that I was alluding to. So if you can see the screen, the pointer is not working. So in the top right-hand corner, kind of the northeastern corner of the site, is the condo-style townhome development. And so those are the smaller units. Kind of the lighter blue, I'll call it Carolina blue, is in this section here. Those are additional townhome. Those are alley-fed townhomes. So those are ones that are going to have alleys that will have where your driveways are, but ultimately the front of the units are going to front on the public street as people pass by. The purple units, and if I'm missing any of these colors, it's because I'm maybe partially colorblind, and I apologize for that. But the purple units are alley-fed, single-family detached homes, which again, we think is a really unique product that will be complementary to the existing housing stock that's already in Zebulon. And then finally, those kind of golden-colored units that you see in front of you are traditional single-family detached with front-loaded homes. And I've got a slide here to talk about the amenity, but I really want to focus on, again, on that sense of community that's gone into it. We've received great comments from the staff. The plan that's before you tonight, as was mentioned, was submitted back in November. We've gone through 3 rounds of review. We've received great comments from the community, and we've incorporated additions to our plan. As a result of that, we've received great comments from the staff, and we've been working closely with them to think creatively about how to create a unique housing experience and a unique community. And we've received great comments from you all, and thank you to the commissioners who have made themselves available and who have been available to meet with us. Commissioner Baxter, really appreciate the deep dive that you've made on the case with us and the thoughtfulness and creativity that you've shown. And I'm going to walk through a little bit of that. Some things that we haven't seen, I think, certainly not on cases that I've worked on in Zebulon. I do primarily most of my work in Western Wake County. This feels like the type of development that I would work on in Western Wake County, the type of planned community that you see in places like Cary, Apex, and Holly Springs, where I do the vast majority of my work. It's a comprehensive, well-planned amenity, and I've got a slide that's going to talk about that. We've got pollinator-friendly landscape plantings. That's a part of the condition of the case. So along our landscape buffers, those are going to have pollinator-friendly plantings to, encourage. It's environmentally conscious, environmentally sensitive. It's the right thing to do. We've got robust conditions to ensure high-quality residential development via architectural conditions. We've limited rentals of the units to 10%. No more than 10% of the units can be rented at any given time. We are incorporating all of the recommended improvements from the traffic study that was performed in concert with the town as well as DOT, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have about that. With respect to the commercial site up along Pearces Road, it is worth noting we've kind of created the opportunity, created some flexibility up there. We're not sure what's going to go there right now. Maybe it's a daycare. Right now there isn't really a market for that particular site. We have granted, and we're going to be granting as part of this approval, hopefully, that the town would have 5 years to exercise an option in the event that the town seeks to acquire the property. And then lastly, the commitment that's being made to affordable housing. We are very familiar, my client's been listening to the discussion, understands very well, Zebulon wants to see a variety of things. They want to see a place of community, a place where people are going to want to live and want to be able to stay. From what we understand, you all also want to see places that aren't your standard kind of run-of-the-mill residential communities, but you also want to make sure that Zebulon's a place for everybody in Zebulon. And so what we have been working on in close concert with a number of groups is to, I think, a really creative opportunity for affordable housing in this area. And so we've got that in two different prongs. One is we've got a minimum of 21 of those condo-style units. Those units in the northeastern portion of the site are going to be at 80% of Wake County AMI. Additionally, and this is something that I've been able to work with Habitat for Humanity on successfully, and we've talked to Habitat for Humanity about this site. I've talked personally with Patricia Birch about this site. They're very excited. They're looking for opportunities in Zebulon right now, and they're really excited about this particular opportunity. We have worked and have a commitment to provide a minimum of 5 units. 5 of those units will be available for a Habitat-like builder to be able to come in and build truly affordable units. And I explained this to Commissioner Baxter when we met. I've had good success with this because a lot of times, and you all can probably appreciate it, the challenge with affordability isn't that market rate developers don't want to deliver it. It's they don't know what to do with it. There's essentially 2 types of builders. There's your market rate builders and there's your affordable builders. And finding those hybrid builders, they really don't exist because in North Carolina, because there's no inclusionary zoning, you're either one or the other. So what I've been able to do with Habitat, and Joe was very excited about this opportunity to bring Habitat along, is you kind of turn those units over to Habitat. The experts in the room, they know exactly what they're doing with affordable housing. It takes the private developer out of it because they don't know what to do with it. It puts the experts in charge of making sure that those units are delivered to the people that ultimately need it. Additionally, you'll note in our conditions, it's in condition number 9 on our master plan set. We've worked with Joe. Joe has worked with Roebuck Homes. And with respect to those affordable units, if the buyer of one of those units is working with one of the builder's lenders, those lenders have agreed to waive origination costs, closing costs, and application fees for Town of Zebulon and Wake County Public School System employees. So that is a condition that's included in the case, and it's designed to ensure that the community has an opportunity to live in this community, that folks who live and work in Zebulon have an opportunity to live and work in this community. And I've worked on similar developments with Habitat. Habitat's had great successes in the places that I've worked, and they're really, really excited about the opportunity to be a part of this conversation and a part of the challenge of meeting the challenge of affordability in Zebulon. As I mentioned, the amenities are a big part of what's gone into the planning of this site. And so what you can see here is this is the centrally located amenity feature. And that's got a variety of things. It has a pool, there's a pickleball court, but there's also some really neat features. One of the things that will be done around the pickleball courts, in addition to the noise protection, we've got a condition making sure that we're going to put some sort of screening to prevent noise, because pickleball is great, but it also creates a lot of noise. But it's going to be pre-wired. There's going to be outlets to facilitate food trucks. So the idea is to create a community space, a gathering space, not just your typical throw up the pool, throw up the cabana and move on. It's really designed to be the nucleus of the community. Additionally, and very creatively, you've got all these walking trails, you've got lots of walking trails, but you also have these little lines that when I first got involved in this case, I didn't know what they were. You can see these lines kind of marking their way along. It's a Frisbee golf course. And so they've got 12 holes of Frisbee golf that they've wired in as kind of part of the open space. And you can see it's tree-lined areas. It's a really unique, I've never worked on a development with a builder who came up with the idea that, hey, we want to put a Frisbee golf course in as part of the amenity of living here. But it's a great way to get people out. If you've never done it, I highly encourage it. Even if you can't throw a Frisbee really well, it's a lot of fun. But I think it demonstrates the thoughtfulness that this builder team has really put into trying to deliver something that is going to meet the needs of the community from a housing standpoint, that's going to meet Zebulon, where you all are in terms of your expectation, and provide the type of community that everyone will want to be a part of, that everyone will be proud of. And so we're really excited to be here and answer your questions. The last thing I'll mention, as I noted, we received some feedback early in the process relative to how this development was going to impact folks who live kind of along our eastern boundary, kind of north and south of that. We've increased the buffering along those areas, and we've highlighted that. We've also highlighted kind of distances between where homes are going to build, and it's tough to see on there. But we've got that information available. So I just want you to know, again, amongst the number of comments that we've received through this process and have incorporated into the plans, included in the plans is increased buffered standards adjacent to those existing residential areas to ensure that the impact from a visibility standpoint, from a screening standpoint, from a noise standpoint will be as minimal as it possibly can. And so with that, again, I just kind of wanted to highlight what we believe are really the salient points. There's a number of other conditions associated with the case. I won't bore you by reading through all of them, but we've done things like install cameras in the construction site to ensure safety. Those cameras are going to be connected to the police department, so they will be able to monitor and be able to respond quickly, so there will not be a lag in time. Our wet ponds are going to have bubblers or be created as amenities where they're adjacent to public streets. And again, there's noise attenuation around the pickleball court. So with that, we're here to answer any questions. As I mentioned, Mark Ashnes from CE Group can answer the planning and engineering questions that are above my pay grade, and Josh Ranke from Bolton can answer the transportation-related questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the Board of Commissioners? Mr. Baxter.
First, I'd like to thank you guys for being so amenable to listening to what I imagine was a tiresome amount of feedback from me. But thank you for working real hard, especially to address some of our affordable housing needs. I appreciate that, as well as working to increase the buffering between current residents and the development, protecting people's sense of privacy and their sense of small town is real important for us. One of my questions that I do have that I didn't think to ask you guys until now is when the second access point is through Hunter's Green, and that is going to also exit out onto Pearces Road. And what is the thought to, it will reduce the traffic coming into the main site directly to Pearces Road from, I'm not sure what the name of, you haven't named any of the streets yet.
Not yet.
But the main street into the development. But I did see something in the packet about hoping to direct traffic to Zebulon Road.
Well,
you might not be the right person to ask this
yeah,
question.
and I'll defer to one of my teammates on that point. I know that one of the things we've been looking at is there's going to be an eventual connection. As you can see, we have a stub to our west. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be an eventual connection, we believe, that will connect those two communities. Okay. Just not part of this plan, but I'll lean on Josh.
Sure, and I guess to kind of recap, you know, obviously interconnectivity, good for emergency response, those sort of things. I always hear it as, you know, what happens when folks cut through? You know, we looked at essentially where that would access along Pearces Road. You look at levels of service A, B, or C. So even if you do have some traffic that goes down there, there is some capacity. That being said, also, if that were to become a daycare or something like that, it's potential that you'd have sort of the intermixing where some people say, I'm going to cut through there. I'd naturally be on the roadway system, but now I drop my kids off at daycare and exit there. So it is something, when we're working with DOT and town staff, we kind of say, what's our best estimate of where people would realistically, like who would go here, who would cut through here, is you'd have portions that would say, I live far enough down here, I'm not going to backtrack or anything. And like I said, there might be some folks that say, I want to do the reverse in my natural patterns. I now use this new access point because of whatever that potential parcel could be, whether it's a daycare in the future. So once again, there is capacity at that intersection. So it's not like, oh, adding a few cars is going to make or break it. We're looking at level of service A, B, and sometimes C, depending on the approach there. So does that kind of answer it? I mean, there's no exact number where you can go, I know these people.
No, it does. And just from where this development is slated to be located and where access to the highway is, I'm assuming that the majority of the traffic is going to be turning right anyway, which makes it easier to do from the development.
Correct.
Okay.
And then returning similarly just to the south at Golden Plum there. Golden Plum, like they have the left turn, we'll actually have a left turn into our site as well as a southbound right.
Okay, good.
And that's kind of beefed up because of that exact knowledge is, yep, in the morning they'll all be heading towards work, and then in the PM they're all going to be returning.
Thank you so much. And then I just have one more question. With the parcel in red, how do we ensure that this gets used as commercial, and how do we make sure an investor is attracted before it potentially reverts back to the developer?
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously for the first 5 years, it's going to be zoned for commercial, and you know, like with any portion of the site, they're going to be looking to monetize it as any good developer would. In terms of, you know, attracting business to it, you know, I think we're happy to work with the chamber, happy to work with the town to you know, again, I think that's reflective in the willingness to grant an option to the town to try to achieve the town's objectives here with respect to commercial development. So right now we don't have any active plans in terms of courting business, but certainly up for ideas on kind of working with the town and working with the community.
Could you add some verbiage that you'll work with our economic development department?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Davis?
You spoke earlier regarding 10% for rental limitations. I know that's a concern a lot of our citizens have, but then there are residents that they live in now. Can you speak to how you guys are going to be able to control that and keep that to 10%, especially throughout build out and after it's completed?
That will be HOA monitored, so there will be, as part of the declaration, as part of the covenants that are recorded for the community that address any number of things, architecture and all of the things that go into, everything that goes into a declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions for a residential community, a planned community like this. One of those covenants will be that the HOA is required to enforce that 10%, so they're going to have to monitor it and kind of keep track. And you know, in terms of the logistics associated with reporting that out, I can't answer those specifically how they're going to handle that, but ultimately, like with enforcing buffers and enforcing landscaping and things like that, it's going to be up to the homeowners association to enforce.
Okay, and so I assume that as we continue in the build out, you will be working on how much percentage that you want built out. And I don't know if you can answer this, but how many of the homes will be built out before the HOAs is turned over to the residents?
I don't know if we know the answer to that right now. I mean, is it 90% or 100%?
Thank you for having me. My name is Joe Sabina. I'm represent the developer. A lot of times it's municipality driven. Typically, it's 80 or between 80 and 90% build out will be the HOA turnover. Now there's reasons for that, and I'd be happy to expound on why it takes that much to turn it over beforehand, but I also don't want to ramble on and sidetrack us. So.
Something that we can definitely discuss later on, but it was just more the concern of, or the question of, how do we really control that 10% rental?
Yeah, and so, so there are ways, and the HOA, first of all, has to communicate it pretty adamantly when they close on the house. So there's a packet where things will have to be laid out, and people have to sign off on that and agree that they're going to understand that there's certain rules and covenants. So that's step one. Step two is there are ways that you can tell if things go rental. One is that things start getting sent to different addresses is the biggest one. The next one really is going to be the neighbors. Neighbors will know when things go rental. Neighbors will be encouraged to be very proactive with their HOA manager, and then certain things can take place after that. Typically, when there's a violation with an HOA, at least based on my experience, I find what works is imposing fines quick and enthusiastically. You can see that probably being effective in this case as well.
Commissioner Miles?
Just with Commissioner Davis, what we done in the past, Commissioner Davis, we had where they did it in increments and build out, just so you're not turning over completely a blind HOA to the citizens. So that potential option we can look at, say 40% build out, you have at least 2 people on your HOA as they're learning. That is something we have done in the past.
Familiar with that property, yes, and also, there's lots of ways you can do it. That's a good one. Another thing that I've found that works out really well is at a certain point of residence, a certain number of houses filled, you appoint an advisory board that's full of residents.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you don't want residents to control a development before it's completed, and it's for the benefit, really, of the municipality and the general public. If things can't be controlled by the declarant, there is a really good reason that the overall vision will not be realized. So meaning that if you give up control to homeowners too early in the process, things can kind of go off the rails and diverge from what was originally planned, because HOA is a kind of a quasi-judicial, and they have certain rights, and so it's very important, and I would always advise that the developer maintains control of the HOA board until they're about 80 to 90% build out, and that ensures that things like stormwater does not lag, things like architecturals do not lag, things like landscaping and certain maintenance things don't lag. While I am declarant, I will be responsible for subsidizing the HOA if it's not self-sustaining on its own. When you relinquish control too early, things like that can get ignored, and then all of a sudden you find yourselves with an HOA that's not necessarily as financially solvent as you want it to be. So, I've been doing this a long time, and I'll live through 2008 and through 2012 where really bad things happened in HOAs that didn't have enough money to get things.
Could we ask for you guys to do a graduated advisory board?
Oh yeah,
then?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Actually.
Okay.
In fact,
That would be excellent.
Yeah,
That way
what
they
I
at
like to do
least-
on those advisory boards too is if there's a resident that's an accountant, they're a perfect ad. If there's a resident that has some legal experience, they're a perfect ad. I actually like to try to find folks that are going to be involved in the HOAs that actually have, some sort of, professional background that can kind of add, and it gives the overall residents some confidence too that, there's nothing better to have an accountant on the advisory board, because then the residents are pretty much assured that the books are tight, right, and there's no shenanigans taking place. So we'll do things like that, absolutely.
Questions from the board? I had one comment. There was, I guess, at one of your neighborhood meetings about involving Heroes for Homes as a possible participant.
What we were doing is kicking around the idea of how we enable the affordable housing, and that was one of the avenues that we were discussing. Since then, we decided that there might be a better critical mass effort if we worked with Habitat. So it was kind of a Habitat or some sort of veterans. I've also worked with Helping a Hero. Done that in the past as well. So we're open to any organization that their primary focus is basically enabling and providing housing for folks, whether it be a veteran or someone that works within the community, within the actual jurisdiction, first responder, things like that. Sure.
And Mayor York, just to clarify on that point, the way we've worded that condition, we've mentioned Habitat because we've talked to them, but the condition speaks to a builder of affordable housing, not exclusively with respect to Habitat. So as of right now, kind of everything's on the page, just we're pointed towards Habitat. But yeah, that's certainly still an option.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Cool.
Now we have questions from the planning board. Mr. Adams?
No questions at this time.
Mr. Schellinger?
A couple of probably not huge questions. The stub out on the west side that's there for future, you're right there. Mm-hmm. Am I reading that map? I'm just wondering why it's not aligned with the road, or am I just misreading the map?
Ultimately, there's going to be a T intersection in that location. Mark, I'll let you speak to that.
Sure. Evening, board members and staff. Mark Ashens with the C Group. So there's obviously some other property that's in Wake County's jurisdiction right now, and so there's not a certainty, but that seemed to be a logical stub because it's near the that northerly road in Weavers Pond. So between our property and Weavers Pond, there is no break in the property where there was a stub to our property. So we put that stub at that location.
Yeah, and to clarify, what may appear to be a street here, that's actually the landscape buffer.
I was
wondering. That street stubs north, not to the east. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was trying to
That's a way easier way to answer that question. Sorry for that.
You got it. I really like the layout and design of the community hall. I like the denser development being more in the center, so just a comment that I like that a lot. Can you talk a little bit more about the traffic improvements that are going to be made on Pearces Road?
Mr. Ranky, back up.
Sure.
So along Pearces Road, to kind of focus on that, obviously at the driveway, we've got the turn lanes. We're working with DOT. Obviously, we don't have driveway permits or anything like that, and that's where a lot of those improvements will be tied in through DOT. But we're looking at Pearces and Pippin. Essentially, we've got on the table is either a mini roundabout or signalization, monitor for signalization is what DOT has. So essentially, they will say at some point, we want you to perform a signal warrant analysis. That's saying where does, kind of how long during the day are there capacity issues? Is there a crash history? Things like that it dives into, and then they determine, because DOT makes the ultimate call on signals. So at that intersection, it would either be mini roundabout or monitor for signalization. And then, and I know it was mentioned before, at Proctor and Pearces, that was potentially part of a LAP project. It sounds like it's not, so that would be a locally administrated project. Due to funding, it sounds like it's not part of that. It might be tied into Arundel. There's possibility for some sort of fee paid there as part of the improvement cost, or implementation of once again, a mini roundabout would be something that could go in there. So DOT essentially has called it out as a mini roundabout where we have the flexibility to work with the town on that improvement. So that's what we've got along Pearces Road.
And when you say a mini roundabout, what?
So essentially, everybody hears that and they're like, it still has to be designed so fire trucks and things like that, but sometimes it's not impacting other landowners and such, where a full roundabout might have some slip lanes and things like that. But this is essentially, it's just a smaller version of how that is. So it's still usually with the center portion, the island in the middle, it might be a little more mountable than other things. Like if you drove through, I think it's Pinehurst has that massive one. You're not driving through the middle of that one, but it does give flexibility if you have oversized vehicles that might not maneuver as well, that they'd be able to kind of mount that center island.
And Pearces Road, right where the commercial parcel is projected to be, is that section of Pearces Road a 2-lane divided, or is that slated to be a 4-lane divided? 2-lane.
Yeah, so we're putting turn lanes in there, but yeah, it would be a 2-lane section there.
Would people be able to make a left turn coming out of the community onto Pearces to go?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So that would be a full access. You could turn right or left in and then right or left out of there as well. And once again, you would have turn lanes along Pearces to get that traffic out of the through movement, keep it safe, get them in storage and into the site.
And then the last question I had was just regarding, and I saw in some of I think that the public comments in the meetings was concerns about water pressure and issues, and there might be some pumps have to be installed.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you live up in that area, I think people recognize there generally hasn't been a fire flow problem because that only requires a 20 PSI pressure with some significant flow. Typical acceptable pressure in your home is probably 50 PSI, ideally maybe 80 PSI. And so because of the town's elevated water tank or the city of Raleigh system now, this whole area suffers from the static pressure, which is that just the normal pressure you have in your house. We did the original project of Weaver's Pond with McGregor Development before the 2006-2007 period, and we actually had a water booster pump station approved through the city of Raleigh right opposite the elementary school. So that's a plan that could be relooked at. So when we get into the construction drawing phase, we'll coordinate with City of Raleigh to determine, what's the best way to do it. Short of that, it's installing a booster pump like in your garage, and it's a small jet pump, and it basically allows you to boost your pressure, 30 PSI. And so it's not common, but we've done that in quite a few projects where you have sort of a low static pressure.
And the city of Raleigh would be the ones who would determine whether or not an actual pump station needs to be?
Yeah, so what we had originally approved through the city of Raleigh back in, say, 2005 was dual pumps with a small jockey pump that keeps the pressure on, and then a generator, a backup generator in case of power failure to ensure that water could be boosted. It's similar to what a golf course uses for irrigation system. It's the same kind of approach. You have a small pump that keeps a pressure on the system, and then as demand increases, one pump would come on and has a variable frequency drive, so it adjusts to the amount of demand, and then if there's so much demand, the second pump would come on to further keep the pressure up while there's more demand for flow.
But I guess, and I get what you're saying, and I thank you for that.
It's the city of Raleigh. We'll deal with that at the construction drawing phase.
Okay, gotcha. No other questions?
Dave?
No questions at this time.
No questions.
Thank you. So at this time, we would declare a public hearing. Hearing is opportunity for the public to express thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opinions regarding the proposed requests to the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board. The Board of Commissioners, Planning Board, staff, and applicant will not engage in dialogue at this time. If the public has questions pertaining to the development, please contact town staff or the applicant following the public hearing. I will now take public comment to the podium on my left. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the project?
Declare the public hearing open, please.
I will now declare the public hearing open. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Okay. Name, address for the record, please.
Robert Terry, 10608 Staghound Trail in Zebulon. This afternoon was the first time I'd really taken a look at this particular project, and I think they've done an outstanding job. It's a nice piece of land up there. People have talked about for some time as to what would be developed up there, and it looks like you guys did a really good job. And I think that you know, find a way to get the yes on this. I think the town will really do well with it. And Roebuck Homes is a really well-known builder in the Triangle, and you know they built most of the North Raleigh, so they've got a very good reputation. Build really nice homes. By looking at the homes in the narrative, the price point's going to be pretty good up there. So I think there's a lot of good things that'll impact the town in a real good manner. I say yes.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the project? Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of the development project? Podium, please. State your name and address.
My name is Ashley, last name Falk, 9717 Weathering Court, in the North Wade neighborhood. But tonight I'm speaking out of deep concern about the proposed development of over 500 homes in a 2.6 acre site for commercial development that has stipulations to it. I believe that this project poses risks to road safety, infrastructure adequacy, and the long-term value of existing homes in the area. This project would bring obviously more than 5,000, this project would bring more than 5,000 additional car trips per day to a road that's already busy during school drop-offs and work commutes. And while there are plans that will improve those roadways, it's still a lot of cars to bring to the area, with only 2 current proposed access points. That's not enough for the scale of growth, in my opinion. Even if a connection was made to Farrell Road, that traffic would still likely end up being routed to Pearces Road. The traffic study that I found online also ends its projections in 2031. But what about growth after that? We all know that the population isn't going to level off by then. This town is growing, and any realistic plan needs to take that into account. Even beyond traffic, large-scale new construction devalues the existing homes in the area, making our older properties seem outdated. Many buyers gravitate towards newer homes with modern layouts and energy efficiency. As supply increases, demand shifts, and that pushes down resale value for long-term residents who maintain their homes and contributed to this community. I'm not against growth, but believe it needs to be smart, safe, and respectful to the people who already live there. I respectfully urge the town to deny or delay approval until access points meet code, not going through an additional neighborhood that already exists, and require traffic studies that go beyond 2031. We deserve thoughtful development, not rushed approvals. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else wishes to speak in opposition of the development? Was there another hand back there? Hearing none, anyone who wishes to speak neither for or against the project? Name and address, please.
Willis Walton. I live at 4014 Watsonia Drive in Zebulon. I'm speaking here tonight neither for or against this development. I'm neither against this development for various reasons. The first reason is the variety of housing types this development would provide. This development offers 53 condo-style townhomes, 144 rear-loaded townhomes, 211 rear-loaded single-family homes, and 103 front-loaded single-family homes for a total of 511 homes. The variety of housing types would beneficially give 4 different options for people to live in this development. The second reason I'm neither against this development is that this development would be better and more beneficial to our town than the average detached single-family housing development. This is due to its slightly denser design, which is thanks to its variety of housing, which has the benefit of reducing the cost of getting utilities to these homes, adding more units to the housing supply in town, reducing demand for housing in town, making housing cheaper in town, and giving more property tax revenue to our town government. The third and final reason I'm neither against this development is that the development would provide various amenities and a certain business to this development, in this development. This would be very beneficial to the people who live in this development due to having various parks, a club, a pool, a pickleball court, a park playground, a dog park, various trails, a disc golf, and a commercial, institutional, or civic use business area they can use. Also, these amenities and certain business will be easily accessible in walking or cycling distance, so the people who can live here don't have to drive to access these services elsewhere. This factor would also benefit our town in that it will slightly reduce traffic and the strain on these services in or outside of our town. Despite the many positives I just stated on this development, I'm also neither for this development. This stance boils down to a single big issue with this development, and that is the inefficient land use. This development, while better than the average detached single-family housing development, has the same inefficient land use as the latter, because both are primarily designed for vehicles and people second, but to a slightly lesser degree due to its slightly denser design. But this development could be better and more denser than it could currently be. This would be possible if this development used regional mixed-use zoning, which this government thankfully passed last month. While not fully perfect, regional mixed-use zoning could allow for this development to be even better, multiplying the positive aspects of it by multiple times over, ultimately benefiting our town and aiding in reversing the suburban experiment, which is not as possible with planned development. Ultimately, with this development, this will probably not happen. So it's either accepting this development or not. Despite the big flaw of this development that I just mentioned, it is better than the average detached single-family housing development. So I ask of this government to approve of this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak neither for or against the development?
David Hughes. I live at 900 East Horton Street, Zebulon. Pearces Road is already a nightmare when it gets to a rental. If you look at the traffic count in the late afternoon or in the morning rush, even though the developer and the town is going to make some road improvements, I don't think that they're enough, especially for something this size. It's not going to handle it. It's got to be more improvements than what they're proposing. So I guess I'm kind of leaning towards against it, but I'm just bringing it to your attention. I think it needs to be more than that. And while I'm up here, and this is on a personal note, and this is to the commissioners, I'm really disappointed in your decision about the planning board. I guess I'm overqualified. So I just want to let you know I'm disappointed in that. Thank you.
Anyone else wishes to speak? Neither for or against? Yes. Name and address, please.
Hi, Rachel Helms, 1612 Indigo Creek in Zebulon. I do like the idea of the plan development. It looks a very nice environment. I have concerns. I'm in Pearces Landing, which is right behind there. So I think for me, one of the concerns I have is, obviously I've heard about the work being done on Pearces Road. It is a problem right now. We also have a problem with Golden Plum. Everybody uses that as a thoroughfare. It's busy. We have lots of speeders. How is this new subdivision going to impact our subdivision? Is there going to be access points from Indigo, well, not Indigo Creek, but Pearces Landing through into this neighborhood? That's a concern of mine. The only other concern that I have really is I like the idea of the buffers that have been put into place. I think that's going to be great, especially for residents that are building still in Pearces Landing right now that will back up onto this new subdivision. So it's nice to see that that buffering is in place. The water pressure that was brought up, how is that going to affect us? We already suffer with a low water pressure issue. So if this went ahead and the water pressure is then subsequently affecting our subdivision as well as neighboring homes, are the developers going to be held responsible for that, or are we supposed to just figure it out ourselves? So, you know, there's questions there, and I'm in real estate, so I'm not opposed to new homes coming. I just want to make sure that it's done correctly and we're not going to be directly affected. Thank you.
Address, please.
My name is Lillian Ruth. I live at 3464 Lacewing Drive in Zebulon, which is in Weaver's Pond. My concern, again, is the roads. The roads are really bad now. If you add all of the homes that are surrounding us, we're up to 1,200 homes. The traffic is going to be terrible. The roads are going to be terrible. There's going to be multiple accidents. And one thing that no one has brought up is, where are these kids going to go to school? The schools are already full. Where are we going to stick 2.5 children for 1,200 homes that are in our immediate surrounding? It's probably a 2-mile distance that we're adding 1,200 homes. Where are all those kids going to go to school? So that's my concern. Thank you. But the development is great. Thank you for the 40-foot buffer.
Mr. Lauer.
Thank you.
Could you please connect the last with Glenn Carrozza from Wake County Public Schools so that she can get her question answered? Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other neither for or against project?
We have one comment that was emailed in, sir. This is from Matt Atkins. He lives in Wakefield Oak Grove. It says, good afternoon. I see that I missed the deadline for submitting public comment. I just saw the announcement of the proposed meeting tonight, but he wanted to make a comment anyway and ask that this be read. Either as part of the board meeting or as a response later with the town planning department, I would like to hear what the plan is to address congestion on Pearces Road. The town just voted down a bond to improve the intersections at Proctor and 97 at the end of last year. Those intersections are unbearable right now as it is, and there is another development underway. And now I see that we are voting to add more. I wholly support development and understand the need for Zebulon to grow. I understand that this this is going to happen along Pearces Road, but I am very concerned that we are not adding roundabouts and fixing the light cadences or adding more lanes before we add a few thousand homes on a road that has historically been used by farmers and a handful of houses. I just want to know what the plan is to address the ever-increasing traffic issues on this side of Zebulon. I live in Wakefield Oak Grove subdivision, just outside town limits and just inside the planning zone. So all of these changes are of great interest to me. Thank you.
Do we have any other electronic messages or letters from that need to be read for the public hearing? If there's no one else to speak, the public hearing is closed, and we refer the matter to the planning board for considerations. Next is 25-04 Zebulon Public Safety Station. The request is for conditional zoning for 11.13 acres of office institutional land development located on 200 West Judge Street.
Good evening, Mayor and Planning Board and Board of Commissioners. Tonight I will be speaking to you about the Zebulon Public Safety Station. This is something you as a board have already seen a number of times, as well as the citizens have seen a number of times. Tonight they come before you just to ask for a couple variations from what's required in our UDO. Just like with any other project that any developer is bringing to town, any new project that the town does is also held to the Unified Development Ordinance standards. And so within that process of going through the review of this project, there were a couple concerns brought up about having to meet those standards, specifically under the commercial design standards. And I'll go through those tonight to talk about where the fire station is asking for those variations. So with any plan development, we are you as the board are looking at the following standards: whether the project meets the public's health, safety, and welfare, whether it's appropriate for the location in which it's proposed, whether it's reasonable and within the public's interest, and then any other relevant factors. And then as well, with this being a plan development, that it's better than the strict interpretation of the UDO standards. So the property, ADW Architects was the applicant. The town of Zebulon currently owns the property, and this is the property that's just right behind us. It is at 200 West Judge Street. The acreage, once divided off, will be 11.13 acres. The current zoning is office institutional, or OI, and the proposed zoning is for plan development. Public hearing notification. Public hearing signs were posted. Mailed notices were sent to property owners within 750 feet. The paper of general circulation had this notice in it 2 times within the Wake Weekly. And then it was also posted on the Town of Zebulon webpage. So current zoning, as you can see here, the site is within that office institutional zoning, and it is near the near a residential district as well as our DTP district. And you'll see that reflected in the architectural designs and the variations that are being requested. Is really trying to mirror the character of a residential zone within this future EMS and fire station. The future land use for this site is suburban commercial, which does support anything that may support a suburban area, such as a fire station, and then as well as is surrounded by similar land use types as you saw in the current land use. Timeline of activity. First review was submitted back in February, on February 12th. Comment letter was sent out on March 17th, with a TRC meeting happening March 26th, and then the joint public hearing packet was submitted on April 28th. So concept plan, so as you can see here, this is the concept layout for this site. The fire station will be accessed through the bays off of the side of the site, but will have direct access onto Judd Street. And then as well, there will be additional parking provided, both that could be used for the current municipal complex as well as for the future fire station. So some considerations when considering this plan development request tonight are as follows. So the permitted uses for this site, the applicant is only requesting the permitted uses of a fire and EMS use. Buffer, so the applicant is requesting a deviation from our typical buffer standards that would require street trees along the full frontage. The purpose behind this request is to ensure that there is enough sightline for turning fire trucks, as there will be a lot more emergency trips going in and out of this site. And so you can see here the sightline heading I guess that would be east on Judge Street. There would be no street trees, as well as not providing those due to a concern for underground utilities. So architectural standards, so this is the other large deviation in the plan development request tonight. So typically, we do require that, I believe it's 50% of the first floor portion be visibly transparent. The applicant is providing at least 10%. And so this is a slight variation from what we typically require. And then as well, the applicant is providing a stipulation that no more than 50% of any single window or door is obstructed by a window sign or other opaque display, with the exception of opaque openings not included in the fenestration calculation. So this would account for the mechanical room door that you can see right here. Standards, so the primary building entrance is a requirement that we have for any commercial building, which really helps to denote to the public where to enter a building. And so the applicant is still proposing to provide that entrance, but proposing the following conditions be met with that primary entrance. That primary entrance will include a projection or recess above adjacent wall plane, a canopy, awning, portico, archway, arcade, or other covering that extends upward from the building wall, and architectural detailing around the entryway, such as tile work or other integrated molding, and then differing roof plans, roof pitches, roof forms, roof heights, or roof materials. And the applicant has a much prettier design that you'll be able to see in their slides, which will give you a better picture of what this may look like. Road improvements, so like with any development that comes into town, the comprehensive transportation plan must be met. And so for Judge Street, the comprehensive transportation plan shows that as a future 2-lane median divided road. Understanding that medians may not be the best to have right in front of the fire station, that median in the language that we use can either be a median or a turn lane. And so additional width will be added to Judge Street to account for that future median and or turn lane, as well as the 5-foot sidewalk, continuing the sidewalk that is existing on Judge Street down to where it turns into Bell Street. So utility allocation policy, again, like with any development in the town of Zebulon, any new development is required to follow this utility allocation policy if they are requesting allocation of water and sewer. So with a governmental use, we start with 45 points, and the applicant has proposed the following points to be allocated towards their utility allocation policy based off of these sections. So off-site bike ped improvements, so construction of off-site sidewalk improvements for 2 points, the construction of a stormwater wetland SEM feature, which would be 5 points, and then outdoor enhancements, including the installation of native shade trees, and that will be 10 trees, so 1 point for each tree. So approving the proposed plan development will allow for the construction of the public safety station. And then the following standards, again, are what will be considered tonight when reviewing this proposal, whether the public's health, safety, and welfare will be impacted, whether it's appropriate for the location in which it's proposed, whether it's reasonable and within the public's interest, and then any other relevant factors that you as boards deem relevant. And then, again, with any plan development, we're looking for a product that is overall better than the strict interpretation of the UDO standards. So at this time, staff recommends accepting public comment after the applicant's presentation and referring the matter to the planning board for recommendation.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Commissioners, and Planning Board. Chris Perry, Fire Chief with the Fire Department. Take just a second to introduce the experts, because you know I'm outside of my element here tonight talking about planning issues, but glad to be here nevertheless. For our design, part of our design team is here tonight, David Rutherford and Sarah Carr Richter with Wake County Facility Design and Construction, who have been our project managers on this project from day one, and we're very thankful for their part of this project. And then Mike Esposito with ADW Architects is here as well tonight, and they'll be giving you some of the information as we go through tonight. So you recall, many of you have been part of the discussions about developing this fire and EMS station project, and the strategic location that brought us here to the town hall property. This was a project where we were searching to put a geographically located fire station in the center of the area we serve, which it just ended up, when you look at the geographic center, it's right here at the municipal complex. And which brought us to a project where the land was acquired behind this facility, and we entered into the phase to design a facility to serve our community. And with that, we had three things in mind. One was function. We wanted a facility that would serve not only the fire department and our local EMS agency to serve their community, but be there whatever came, whatever weather event came, not a building that would necessarily sustain, would still stand in a hurricane, but would continue to operate in a hurricane. And that's a big part of you. As when you look at the design, there's a reason there's not a lot of windows. This building has to be very, very strong to continue to be operational in the worst of weather conditions. We wanted to also be a good neighbor. We take a facility like this and we put it in an area that has a lot of residential dwelling units. We want to be a good neighbor, and a lot goes into that. You know, looking like the homes in the neighborhood, developing a design that doesn't end up with red lights flashing in people's windows all night long. All of that goes into effect into the design that you're seeing tonight. So that was all developed as well. So with that, we had community meetings where we invited people to come in and tell us what they liked, tell us what they didn't like. From there, we made recommendations and final tweaks and went into it, all of that. And then that brings us to tonight. We've got this final design, and we've got an alignment that needs to occur between our zoning regulations and this design that we have put so much thought and effort into. So with that, I'll turn it over to someone who knows much more than I. Sarah will talk about the design and the changes we've got proposed.
Thank you. I won't take too much of your time, but I did want to just show some more illustrative views of both the site and the building facade to help supplement the excellent presentation that the planning department provided. So first off, here is an illustration of our current site plan for the project, which really just shows and helps us visualize how the fire station will fit into the overall campus feel here of the town hall complex. It really helps to kind of see that, you know, we still have our existing wetlands will be maintained and will not be impacted during construction or at project completion. And we really will be just developing this area to coexist with our town hall and police department, as well as the surrounding neighborhood. I do have a close-up of what we had talked about previously on the Judd Street road improvements, and it does just illustrate a bit that we do have some extensive landscaping at the buffer of our property, the street yard, but it's really just the street trees that we are looking for a variance on because, as Kate had mentioned, the impact to some of our sight lines for our fire apparatus that are turning out of the facility, and also with the location of both underground and overhead utilities in this location. Looking again at Judd Street, elevation here. So this is the view from Judd Street. And, really with this building type, this public safety fire EMS station, it doesn't fit neatly into the categories defined in Zebulon's UDO, so that commercial style is not really what we want for this building. So really the face of this, it does include various strategies to increase the architectural interest while still keeping the context of the neighborhood. And as Chief Perry mentioned, the functionality of the building itself. Our elevation, our view from Town Hall, we've really oriented this building facing Town Hall, which helps increase the character of this municipal complex, and also being respectful of the neighborhood, and keeping those large open apparatus bay doors facing Town Hall and not facing adjacent residences. That's all I have to present today, but welcome your questions.
Any questions from the Board of Commissioners? Questions, comments from the board? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the Planning Board?
No, sir.
No questions at this time.
Nothing at this time.
Just one point of clarification. So it looks like from the drawings, there are going to be some street trees, but you keep saying there's not going to be street trees.
Yes, the term street trees is really for the trees that are between the sidewalk and the road. So as you can see on the left side there, we do have those street trees, but as we get closer to the primary entrance where the fire apparatus would be exiting, we have what's called the street yard, which is, I believe that's the correct term, which is the trees that are going to be at the border of our property, but inbound from the sidewalk and just not between the sidewalk and the street.
Okay, thank you.
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you. Public hearing. Public hearing is an opportunity for the public to express thoughts, ideas, concerns, and opinions regarding the proposed request to the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board. The Board of Commissioners, Planning Board, staff, and applicant would not engage in dialogue at this time. If the public has questions pertaining to the development, please contact town staff or the applicant following the joint public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the development? Please come to the podium on my left. Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Come to the podium on my left. Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak neither for or against and just want to have something to say? Come to the podium on my left. Is there any electronic message or emails that to be considered? If there's no one else who wishes to speak, I will close the public hearing, refer the matter to the Planning Board for consideration. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
We have a motion. Is there a second? All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.